Now, Veronika Borovilos is, well, she's a total rock star, first of all, but she came to Canada at the age of 14 from the Ukraine. And thanks to her grandmother being a well-renowned surgeon, she was introduced to the healthcare space and fell in love with helping people get healthy. And over the years, she has not only built more than one business related to the healthcare field, but she's kind of become famous for doing planks on Facebook Live. And just recently, after much prodding from her audience, and including me, has stepped up and offered to help her audience improve their ability to attract and enroll clients and customers, leveraging the power of Facebook Live, or is that for Facebook Live, Instagram, and Facebook Stories primarily. So, Veronika, welcome to Sales Team Rescue.
Thank you.
So, and this is an awesome interview because it's going to be an awesome interview. It's actually. But because, quite transparently, I totally pushed her into this because what she does is so impactful for people, and you wouldn't know it if you see her on social media, but she's kind of shy. Or at least she's acting shy about this topic. But here's the thing. The reason why I wanted to bring you on is because there's this huge challenge, and our audience right now is people who want to build and grow sales teams. And one of the biggest challenges with that is coming up with ways to have your brand get out there consistently and generate more leads. And so most brands know they need to be on social media in some form. And we know that the demographic is changing. Facebook is now, apparently us old people are on Facebook, and the young people are on Instagram, and the younger people are on TikTok, and it doesn't make any sense to me. But I do know at the core piece of marketing that I need to be where my audience is at. And I also know that Facebook stories and Instagram stories are effectively the 2020 version of a billboard. And when I open my phone in the morning, Facebook is one of the first 3 apps I go to. And the first thing I do is end up watching stories. And they'll just kind of go through like a PowerPoint presentation. And that's just where I consume most of my information. And I know I'm not alone. So this is why I think this is so powerful. So before we get into that, first of all, welcome. And tell us, and you can be totally transparent, tell us how you got to, first of all, how you started building this brand around planking and how you've gotten so popular on Facebook Live with it. But then what pushed you into doing the stories?
Okay, so a little bit more about my story, and then we'll go into that. Yeah. I am actually, by degree, I graduated with a business degree, and I worked with an accounting firm for 3 years until having my son. And after having him, I decided to actually switch my paths. I had a bit of an eye-opening experience, and I ended up going into health and fitness, which has been my passion forever. And through that, because of the passion that I have for health, I actually partnered with a network marketing company that is very hard on health. And that made me so excited about just kind of helping people in that bigger way. And part of the reason why I was excited about the network marketing opportunity is that it actually taught me about the power of social media. Previously, I only used it for personal things, just to share pictures with my family, but I never actually considered using it for business. And here it opened so many new opportunities for me, because starting building my network marketing company, I saw that if you want to do it high touch, which is obviously very powerful, but at the same time, I have a 5-year-old kid at that point, right. And I can't really go to networking events too much. I cannot go to too many meetings. I need to make it work for me. And in the long term, I knew that I wanted to have a business where I can be anywhere and work at any time and go around my kid's schedule and things like that. So I started learning from other influencers in social media space, in network marketing space, and I saw how powerful social media can be. And posts were awesome, but a lot of the times it'll take a while for you to think about the posts, because truthfully, your feed is actually your resume. So you won't want to put just random stuff onto your resume. You want to be a little bit more deliberate with it. Whereas the stories is where you can really put your true self out. You can actually really share yourself with people, and that's how you truly build a relationship. Because just like Jeremy says, you start off your day going for the stories. You're not going to go scrolling the feed. but you're kind of checking in with the story. So if your face pops up all the time, people start to get to know you and feel like they know your true self. So they're going to learn who you are and actually trust you in that way.
So let me stop you there for just a second, because that's a really good segue to a video that I saw when you were at a large event for, you mentioned Organo. So you're at an Organo event, and you were in the middle of the president of the company was doing a presentation to this group, and suddenly he started to trip over his words when he saw you, and then finally stopped in mid-presentation and said, "Do you do planks on Facebook Live?" And that's the level that your brand has helped you get to exposure. And there's two components to it. One, obviously, Facebook Live's awesome, but two, you repurpose your Facebook Lives and use them in your stories, right?
Yep.
And so that's so if he's connected with you at all, he either might see it because he follows you, or he might see it because he follows someone else that's commented on, whether it's a Facebook Live or something like that. So it's created this expanded market where, I mean, I could call you Organo famous, I guess, in this context, but it's even more beyond that, right? Because people all over the place. You had made a post, I think, a couple weeks ago, and said, "How would you describe my business?" Or there was some question. Ultimately, people were answering like, "Hey, you'd probably be planking, or you doing the planks," and this was such a big part of it because the brand is so solid. And now your core website is veronikaplanks.com. So, because one thing that Veronika does is Veronika Planks. So, and side note, in case you guys don't see it in her name listed, or you are listening to the podcast, it's Veronika with a K. Very important. So, yeah, also good for branding. So tell me, after the leveraging the social media for your own benefit, for growing your own business, and being able to leverage it in a way that allows you still the flexibility of being a mom, working from home. And you do a few things, right? Like you teach classes. I mean, when we can leave the house, but even when we can't, actually, right? You're still running some working classes. Yeah. So this gives you the flexibility. So if somebody that's watching is like, "Man, I wish I could get my brand to show up on these stories and not be really confused," because I feel like I'm about to age myself, because I was great with technology, and for some reason, Facebook and Instagram stories, I feel like I'm terrified to push the wrong button, because if I go live, the whole world sees it, and if I'm messing it up, I don't know enough about it to feel good about it. So someone like me, specifically someone who has a brand that they want to build. Let's start with this question. Should my brand be about like the logo, the company, or should it be about me and my face? And like, does there need to be a person's face attached to the brand?
See, the interesting thing is people like people. People like to see who they're working with. And a lot of, that's why I find sometimes funny is where I go into somebody's profile, it's all about the product. But in the end, people don't buy the product, they buy from the person. Right. So you need to attach your face to the brand, especially in your stories. And even if you were to look up big companies like Nike, where we don't know who the main person there is, if you go through their stories, they're going to have a person there who tells their story, why Nike is so important to them, how it makes them feel. So you bring out an emotion and you bring out the connection through being a person. But it's that much more powerful when it's your own brand and you bring in your own face, so people learn to know you. So then eventually they will trust you as the expert in the field, and they'll feel like they know your essence. So they feel like they can reach out to you and you're reachable. They can approach you. And in the end, you don't want to just be all around your business. You don't want to be this Mr. Frog, Dr. Spock, who is only talking about what's logical. You want to bring out all the facets of your being. So I always say that the reason why you're posting a story or a post is to either teach somebody. So people come, I should actually paraphrase that. People come to social media to either learn, to get entertained, to get inspired, to feel like part of a community, or to contribute to a conversation. So in a way so for them to learn, you would give them those tips, that information, and it should not always be you talking about the business that you're an expert in, which obviously you're going to do that as well, but start teaching them about other things that actually make a difference for you. So share about products that you use, share about podcasts that you listen to, share about the favorite books you have, so that people are going to come to you and start using you as a resource. For get entertained, give them something funny. Give them something true from your life, so that they see that it's like you're not always the guy in a nice suit and in a tie, but you're there chasing your dog, or you're or there with your girlfriend, and you play pranks with one another.
Well, just to be clear, I sleep in a tie. I'm just kidding. No.
And I walk around in a planking shirt.
There you go. I love that. Let's see this shirt again. Let's just say T-Rex hates planks. I love it. See, still on brand with the shirt that you're wearing. See,
so a lot of thought.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Sorry, I cut you off. Keep going. Yeah. So
no worries. So people also want to be inspired, because in the end, no matter where we are in our life, we can be at the top of our game. We still like seeing those inspirational posts, but I spoke to you about this, and you mentioned that a lot of the time our people who we serve are people who are just like us, but just a couple of years prior. So think about who you were then. What would make an impact? What would make you feel inspired to do something? Also, people want to contribute to a conversation, because honestly, a lot of the times we feel like we are not being heard in our everyday life. I have an almost 7-year-old, and trust me, half the time I feel like it does not register. So when you ask people for their opinion on things, they want to contribute to that. And lastly, they also want to be part of the group. So it's funny, but we kind of like being labeled. Mm-hmm. So at some point, this was purely for fun, but it can actually be used for market research. I did the stories post where it was like, let's have fun. And I did story after story. Which one's better, Seinfeld or Friends? Coffee or tea? Cats or dogs? And I'm not saying you're going to sell from that, because, for instance, with my company, I sell coffees, teas, so on. I wouldn't message a person and be like, so you like coffee? No, but you feel like, okay, I know a little bit more about them. So next time in conversation, if something comes up, I can make a friend's reference.
Right.
Like in the end, it's about relationships.
That's awesome. Well, and it's interesting because, like, as we use the cats versus dogs scenario, there really is an identity component to it, right? It's like, I consider myself a dog person. I've got 2 cats and a dog, and those cats show up, and I know you can't see it, but for the audience here, I've got a little squirt bottle when the cat gets out of line to get the cat away from my keyboard, so I don't have a message sent to somebody that does not make any sense. So I'm in the dog camp completely. Go puppy, go. You are too. Awesome. So, and so that's huge, right? But it's really interesting if you're getting people. It's almost like, we see all this, like, what Disney princess are you or whatever, right? And dude, I love I mean, not necessarily the Disney princess one, but yeah, all the time I'll find myself like, oh, this is a neat little quiz. Or I think the last one was, what does the next 3 years of your life look like? I'm like, oh, let's just see what it does, right? And we know from marketing that this helps engage people. And so if you're asking a question, especially if it's a 2-option choice, it's very easy to get engagement that way. So I think that's super smart. And if you're doing it through a story, then it's basically a billboard saying pick one or the other, and people are nearly compelled to make a choice unless they're concerned about what's going to happen next.
Exactly. And that's why you don't want to always be coming at them with a sales pitch, always talking about your product, your service, and so on. You want to come at them as a person. So that's why people will feel less threatened when you recommend other goods and services that are just helping you, that you're not necessarily selling, because they're not going to feel like every time you talk to them, it's going to be a sales pitch. So that way they'll be more likely to engage.
Gotcha. Awesome. So if you were to, so you gave us some really good key pieces as to why people pay attention, right? What they're looking for when it comes to going on social media. And you said learn, to be entertained, to be inspired. I wrote the next one down as to belong to a group.
To feel like they belong. So like the cats versus us kind of thing. Or I wrote down, so for instance, if I were to make a post, look, my kid left all of his toys around and I asked him to put it away and then he never did. Who else is with me? It's like other moms are going to be there and it's just, my kid does that too. And sometimes it's a very powerful thing, because another thing I forgot to mention is like people want to know behind the scenes. They want to know the true you. And I'm very passionate about sharing the true story. So, for instance, I recently shared the story of how my C-section progressed, which was not the greatest experience. And I had a girl reach out to me in Messenger who said, "Thank you so much for sharing your story, because the same thing happened to me, and I'm having a hard time figuring it out and emotionally settling with it." So you will touch a person that way. And trust me, not even from a sales perspective, but that person is going to be a really warm audience at that point, because they feel like you really have a strong connection about a very profound experience in their life.
Awesome. No, and I think that's huge, right? Because it's, some people say always be closing. I say always be connecting. And I think that that's one of the big pieces is, even if that person never, you shouldn't go into this saying, I want this person to buy from me, but they could be, somebody that might refer people. They could be just someone that's great to know, that is someone that you bond with and, can shoot the breeze with. I saw your little helper in the background there.
Had one by.
So what I want to do really quickly here is, can you share, and you kind of already did, so if I'm getting you to repeat that's fine, but if you were to say like 3 or 4 tips for a company that, and I say company, I mean, ultimately we're talking about a person and their individual representation of their brand. Like my brands are Permission to Sell and Sales Team Rescue, but ultimately it's my face, and I get that. So what could someone like me do as a starting point to get using my stories effectively? Like, can you give me like 3 or 4 tips that would get me on track?
Yes. So I'll actually give you something else. Those ones, what people come to social media for, keep them in mind when you make your posts. Okay. But a few of the very powerful tips is use video in your stories in both Instagram and Facebook, because the algorithm for both, and I don't know, many people have heard the word algorithm, it highly skews stories, posts, everything towards video. Video is the best way of engaging with people and getting people to actually see your stuff. The one thing is that, especially if it comes to something that has to do with you positioning yourself as an expert, make sure that you take the extra few minutes to write up the captions of kind of the summary of what you're saying in that little portion. So, for instance, on Instagram, it'll cut it into 15-second kind of segments. So for each one of the segments, have like a little blurb about what exactly you're saying, because especially in Instagram, unless you turn the volume on, people are not hearing you. Right. And a lot of the people are not going to turn on the volume unless they see something that catches their attention. For Facebook as well, because once again, people turn off the volume, you don't know where they are. Yeah. And actually, it's been shown that does the best for algorithms, so more people will actually see it. Secondly, use tags, use hashtags, use location tags, and tags. Make sure you tag the businesses and the people. So, for instance, if I were to post that, I'm really enjoying this amazing book that just came out, I'm going to tag the author. And trust me, a lot of the times, especially if the author is not super duper huge, they will share that into their stories. So now that you have their audience looking at your story, who knows? And especially if you make that story very catchy, those people might go actually to your profile and check you out. Same for location tags. The location tags will have their own story kind of in place. So then in that way, anybody who goes to that location tag story, they see your stuff. When it comes to hashtags, a little bit trickier. Just because you put a hashtag on your story doesn't mean that it's going to make it to that, but it might, so you might as well try it out. Use polls, and I've talked to you before about this, is where, unless it's like cats versus dogs, you don't want to give people an option to say no. They'll say no by scrolling through. So if I were to say, hey, would you be interested in doing a planking challenge? I would say, yeah, totally. And then the other, for the yeses, yeah, totally. And the other option would be like strong arm. So you don't give them an option for no. And then you're going to obviously reach out to those people. The only thing, in terms of polls in Instagram, because people who are not just your audience are going to see your stuff, you're going to get a lot of bots responding to your stuff, so that's not the best, but hey, it's still worth to post a poll. But for Facebook, it's going to be pretty much your audience who is doing that. But if you have followers, you won't see who, if a follower voted on it, you wouldn't see who it is. Okay. So that's the difference between those. And I like to post the story at least every 1 to 2 hours. Usually for me, it's a little bit more frequent. But every time you post a story, it's going to move you to the front of that line. And if that person engages with you a lot, your face is going to be right at the front of the line. So if they constantly see your face, they're more likely to go and check out your stories and consume all of your information. And once again, you're going to have that much more impact on them.
So, wow. So yes, thank you for that. And so if you're posting every 2 or 3 hours, that seems heavy to me, and I'm sure it does to other people. But I've heard that when people work with you, you've got this process that makes it really easy, so that they don't have to be pushing the button every 2 or 3 hours to make sure something happens. People work with you, and you can help them organize it so that it's not nearly as hands-on for them, right?
Yes. So, for instance, if I were to work with somebody, there are two options. First option is I can do it for you. Obviously, so I am not I'm not I'm not super cheap. I'm kidding. But in a sense, that it's a little bit more of my involvement. But at the same time, it's kind of off your hands. I would get you to provide the content, but I would be the one who's supervising and curating and actually writing out those little narrations in the bottom and things like that, and making it look in line with your brand. But the other option would be to actually have a recurring session about let's plan out your stories for the week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so on, so that we're able to pre-make all ahead of time. So then you have them available and you can just kind of load them. And so that you already have your stuff. You don't have to constantly be thinking about what's the next story I'm going to post.
Gotcha. So you make it super simple. I create some content first of the month or end of the month or whatever.
Exactly.
Ship it off to you with some context, and you can either take care of the rest or have somebody on my team that can fill in that gap as well to take care of it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's very powerful to pre-plan your stories, because that way it kind of forces you to plan on what kind of offerings are you going to be doing in the next month, 3 months, or so on, so that you have more strategic marketing around it.
I love it. I love it. And you even was it last month? Did a planking challenge with 2 or 3 days of promotion where you just asked some people if they're ready to go, and you had this big group come through, and it was just a combination of powerful stories and a clear call to action on them, right?
Yeah. So and a few of them were people I've never met in person. I've only met online, and that was the powerful part about it, is that those people were purely social media contacts.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. So I want to jump into our lightning round now. And hopefully I'll get you super nervous about this part. So Veronika, as we know, coffee's for closers. What is your preferred coffee or comparable drink?
I like my mushroom coffee.
Like your mushroom coffee, yeah.
Pink coffee, yes.
Love it, love it. Okay, perfect. What is one book or movie that you would recommend to somebody who's looking to improve their sales?
So in terms of sales, actually, the book that was very impactful for me was Never Split the Difference, which is a book on negotiation. So in some ways, it makes you rethink the way sales were taught before, the way you were taught to engage with people in conversation. Awesome. One that stands out to me, sorry, I'm going to go on for a while. One that stands out to me was that we've always been taught to get the person to yes. Mm-hmm. But that book will make you think about it first before kind of making questions that always lead a person to say yes.
Love it. I love it. And I'm a big fan of the open-ended questions too, because just because somebody's saying yes doesn't mean they're actually engaged in what you want them to be engaged in. Yeah, that's awesome. Who is someone that's been a mentor in your life?
I've had many. The one that I'm going to mention right now is, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Mm-hmm. I am into metaphysical stuff, and I like how his idea of how your thoughts create your reality. So you have to be very on top of what's going on in your noodle.
I love it. I love it. And final question of the lightning round. What's the strangest thing you do in your daily routine to keep you on your game?
Cold showers.
Cold showers. Oh,
do you want me to tell you the health benefits?
I know there are a lot. Oh, I just don't. It's a stretch for me. But you're not the only one that said that. So cold shower, shock your system. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, Veronika, for people that want to reach out to you, is it best just to email you? I've got your email scrolling along the screen right now. It's Veronika@veronikaplanks.com, right?
Yes.
That's Veronika with a K.
Yes,
Very,
that's my
very cool.
Ukrainian K.
Ukrainian K. There we go. Veronika at veronikaplanks.com. Veronika, thank you so much for being on Sales Team Rescue. You know, the goal today was to help companies and brands really have that exposure on what I consider to be the billboards of 2020, which are Facebook and Instagram stories. So I appreciate your expertise. I appreciate your help. And I appreciate how awesome mine are going to look once we get things rolling. And guys, for those of you watching and listening, be sure to tune in next week, Wednesday, 2 p.m. for the next episode of Sales Team Rescue. Get the replay of this episode, past episodes, and a link for future episodes at salesteamrescue.com. Guys, get uncomfortable, get results. We'll see you next Wednesday at 2. Cheers.